I'm remarrying. With a new wife, you're no longer needed, my mother-in-law declared. Her words cut deep, but what followed was even harsher. Useless ones should just get divorced and leave, she added, her tone unforgiving. My father-in-law, catching on to the tension, chimed in. A wife who can't have kids doesn't belong in our family. Just divorce Ryan and let him marry Adams. Silently standing there, I was left speechless. It was the first time in my life I felt so utterly miserable. Yet in that moment, a resolve began to solidify within me. The time had come for me to fight back. Witnessing my expression, everyone except my sister-in-law froze in shock. They expected me to be hurt, perhaps on the verge of tears. Defying their assumptions, I smiled broadly and calmly said, I'm already divorced, you know. My words hung in the air, leaving my parents-in-law and Ryan gasping in disbelief, their faces registering a mix of pity and astonishment. My name is Margaret, a 31-year-old part-time housewife. 3 years ago, I married Ryan, but we have yet to have children. At 28, when we wed, I was on a promising career path, planning to build it until 30 before focusing on starting a family. Ryan understood and supported my ambitions. When the time came, inspired by a friend's struggle with infertility, I decided to undergo testing just to be sure. The results confirmed my infertility, prompting me to switch to part-time work to focus on treatment. Ryan worked in real estate, earning enough to support both of us comfortably. With our ability to save a little each month, Ryan agreed to my reduced hours. Little did I know, that's when everything changed. Upon learning about my infertility and shift to part-time work, Ryan's demeanor shifted drastically. He had always been kind, but suddenly he insisted, I work full-time, you're part-time, so all household chores are your responsibility. Without my income, we can't afford fertility treatments, let alone live comfortably. To keep me from stressing, you need to handle all the housework perfectly. Initially, I managed well, having lived alone and being adept at housekeeping. However, Ryan began nitpicking over every detail. If a room was slightly untidy, he'd accuse, you're lazy. How can a housewife live like this? If dishes weren't washed promptly, he'd remark, a woman who procrastinates isn't cut out for family life. Maybe you should find more work. There's remote jobs, right? But remember, all housework is your responsibility. You're part-time, I'm full-time. At that time, I was still reeling from the shock of infertility, blaming myself. Wanting a peaceful home for Ryan, tired from work, I tried meeting his demands. Looking back, I see I was just appeasing him, hoping for a child to change things. I juggled part-time work, household chores, and treatments, hoping Ryan would return to his former kindness once we had a child. Clinging to that hope, I pushed through, but the strain took its toll. My health declined, treatments faltered, and our relationship soared. Unable to keep up with chores, my emotions frayed. You can't even get pregnant and still act high and mighty. If you don't want a divorce, listen to me, he said, looking down on me. From then on, even a simple request to pick up his socks was met with disdain. His contempt left me feeling small and uncertain. He saw me not as a wife, but as a convenience or a servant. My spirit wilted under his treatment. A year passed without a child, and the distance between us only deepened. This year, since I switched to part-time work and began treatments, felt like the longest and most trying period of my life. Yet recently, something changed. Ryan suddenly became kind, not just a little, but noticeably so. It was as if he had transformed, showing increased concern for me. When infertility treatments didn't go well, and I felt low, Ryan surprised me with, are you okay? How about I cook dinner tonight? Your favorite beef stew? His kindness brought both happiness and suspicion. After his previous dismissiveness, this sudden change made me wary, questioning his motives. Casually, I asked Ryan, anything good happening lately? He relaxed and shared, work's going great. I landed a big project, but it means more meetings and possibly more time away from home. Initially, this was reassuring. With less physical strain on me and Ryan's career thriving, our future seemed secure. Yet something nagged at me. Lately, Ryan had been unusually curious about my daily activities. When I questioned him about it, he snapped, what's wrong with wanting to know what my wife is up to, Margaret? Are you hiding something from me? His defensive reaction struck me as odd. Was his newfound kindness a cover for something he couldn't tell me? A friend who recently divorced had warned me about her husband's sudden kindness before she discovered his affair. Doubts crept in, and I began observing Ryan more closely. As I monitored his schedule, I noticed a pattern. Ryan went out for drinks every Tuesday and played golf on the second Sunday of each month. He answered normally about other days, but on those specific occasions, if I asked where he had been, he'd react angrily, saying, stop nagging me. You're so annoying. It raised suspicions. Convinced that Ryan might be cheating, I resolved to take decisive action. A few weeks later, weary from the silent struggle at home, I decided to take a short break. A cafe that had recently opened, just a 20-minute drive from home, caught my interest despite rumors of long lines. I didn't mind waiting alone, so I made my way there and patiently queued up. To my surprise, I ran into my sister-in-law, a cheerful and kind-hearted daycare worker 2 years younger than me. She had always looked up to me like a true sister, and I cherished her like family. When I greeted her, my sister-in-law seemed taken aback, casting an unusual glance over me. Perplexed by her behavior, I cocked my head in confusion. "What's wrong?" I asked. Shaking herself out of a daze, she blinked and then brightened up, suggesting we have lunch together. We adjusted the seating and sat down. Over lunch, my sister-in-law shared a shocking revelation that left me speechless. Unable to eat after hearing the news, I abandoned my plans to return home and instead decided to visit my in-laws' house with my sister-in-law. It was a 30-minute drive from our apartment, and I rarely visited, given the strained relationship with my in-laws. They weren't particularly fond of me, so I usually only saw them during holidays or for solemn occasions. This visit would be unexpected and uncommon. Less than 15 minutes later, we arrived. Normally, my sister-in-law informed my mother-in-law in advance of her visits, but today we arrived unannounced. It was the second Sunday of the month, the day Ryan usually spent playing golf for business. Oddly, his car was parked outside when we arrived. My sister-in-law unlocked the door, and as we entered, I murmured a soft greeting. My mother-in-law emerged with a puzzled expression, asking sharply, "What's Margaret doing here?" Her tone made it clear she wasn't pleased with my unexpected visit. I suppressed a sigh at her predictable reaction. From the back of the house, voices reached us. Ryan and a woman appeared in the hallway. Ryan looked momentarily stunned, while the woman cheerfully introduced herself. "Nice to meet you. I'm Agnes, Ryan's future wife." I stood there in disbelief as my sister-in-law, her face twisted with anger, confronted them. "What's going on here? Explain," she demanded. Ryan let out a deep sigh before delivering a shocking blow. "I'm remarrying. You're no longer needed," he declared coldly. My mother-in-law added fuel to the fire with her harsh words. "Useless ones should just get divorced and leave." Amidst the chaos, I remained surprisingly calm and collected, contrasting sharply with my trembling sister-in-law, who was visibly torn between anger and sadness. Ryan, Agnes, and my mother-in-law looked down at me without a hint of remorse. Just then, my father-in-law rushed in, hearing the commotion, and quickly grasped the situation. He erupted, "A wife who can't bear children doesn't belong in our family. Ryan, divorce her and marry Agnes." My sister-in-law shouted in protest, trying to intervene. However, I lifted my head slowly, ready to make my move. My steady demeanor seemed to freeze everyone in their tracks. They expected tears and hurt, but I surprised them with a confident smile. "I'm already divorced," I stated calmly. The revelation stunned Ryan, my parents-in-law, and Agnes into silence. My mention of being already divorced elicited only a feeble response from them. I felt the urge to expose Agnes then and there, but instead, I sighed and continued, "Ryan, remember the recent argument? You were adamant about divorcing me and even started filling out the papers. You signed them, so I completed my part, submitted them, and consulted a lawyer. We're not married anymore," I asserted firmly. Ryan's composed demeanor shattered as he realized the truth. His eyes darted around nervously, betraying his agitation. A few days ago, Ryan and I had a heated argument that escalated when I asked him once more about his whereabouts every second Sunday. It seemed like a trivial question, but it struck a nerve. Ryan, his face flushed with anger, shouted, "Why do you always have to ask me that? Are you trying to control me? I won't stand for it." His outburst wasn't unusual, but I pointed out how disproportionate his reaction was to a simple inquiry about his Sunday activities. Ignoring my remarks, Ryan stormed out of the house in a huff. Later, he returned with hastily completed divorce papers, thrusting them at me, declaring, "I can divorce you anytime." When I questioned if he truly wanted a divorce, Ryan affirmed it with a firm nod. In secret, I filled out my portion of the papers and kept them in my bag, ready to submit at any moment. They felt like a potent charm, a magical document that could dissolve my marriage to Ryan should the need arise. Today, after a startling conversation with my sister-in-law, and having reached my breaking point, I made a stop at the office to file the papers before visiting my parents-in-law. Upon hearing this, Ryan protested, "I was just angry. I didn't mean it." But my sister-in-law countered sharply, "You signed them yourself, stating you could divorce any time. That clearly shows your intentions." Ryan fell silent once more. I couldn't help but sarcastically remark to him, "Looks like we're practically not a couple anymore. Happy now?" Before he could respond, my mother-in-law interjected with a smug smile, "Oh, is that so? Well, we always planned for you two to divorce anyway. So this works out, doesn't it?" Beside her, my father-in-law nodded in agreement. To them, the divorce between Ryan and me seemed inevitable sooner or later, so they saw no harm in it happening now. Their true feelings were evident, suggesting they viewed the divorce as a positive outcome for Ryan. Agnes stood beside Ryan, her smirk irritatingly smug. Ryan chuckled slightly, saying, "Yeah, that's right. Our divorce is just the first step towards me being with Agnes." His words sent a shiver down my spine. Our younger sister-in-law looked embarrassed by the scene, perhaps ashamed of these four. Suppressing the urge to laugh at this absurd family and Agnes was a challenge. Ignoring their self-satisfied expressions, I operated my smartphone and showed them a photo. Before them lay undeniable evidence of Ryan and Agnes's affair, capturing the time and place in a single shot. I calmly told Ryan, "I didn't file for divorce on a whim. I've gathered evidence of your affair from the very beginning." His gulp was audible as he glanced nervously at me. Unexpectedly, Agnes burst into laughter. With a frown, I turned to Agnes, who taunted, "So, you've been investigating me too. That woman you almost mentioned. I guess you found out about her. Were you planning to reveal that she's pregnant? Too bad, Ryan and his parents already know and have let me stay here." My sister-in-law gasped in shock. She had been misled by Ryan, who had told her and their parents at the cafe that we were already divorced. The reason he gave for our divorce was particularly shocking. They told me Margaret was terminally ill with little time left, and she initiated the breakup, she recounted tearfully, still reeling from the unexpected encounter at the cafe. My sister-in-law had initially thought she was imagining things, which explained her earlier strange behavior, for which she apologized. Listening to their account, I was stunned. Ryan had fabricated a story about us splitting up due to my supposed terminal illness. He had instructed his sister, "Margaret is in despair, so please don't contact her," and inadvertently upset her. Believing his deceit, my sister-in-law refrained from reaching out to me. However, upon returning home, she was shocked to find a stranger living there, introduced by my parents-in-law as Ryan's new wife. My sister-in-law was reeling from the revelation of Agnes's pregnancy, a fact she had never heard before. In response to Agnes's smug demeanor, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. After my laughter subsided, I addressed Agnes, who was visibly stunned. "Of course, I knew about your pregnancy. My detective had already filled me in, but I assumed Ryan and his parents, living with you, were also aware," I remarked calmly, sensing the tension rise in the room. Everyone held their breath, waiting for what would come next. Agnes looked at me anxiously, awaiting my next words. When I finally spoke, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. "What I wanted to say is, Agnes, the child you're carrying isn't Ryan's. It's from another man," I revealed bluntly. Agnes's face paled, beads of sweat forming on her forehead as her expression hardened. Ryan was speechless, muttering a bewildered what. His parents, equally bewildered, turned their gaze slowly towards Agnes. Prior to our marriage, I had invested my savings in hiring a detective to gather conclusive evidence and information that would benefit me after our divorce. While photographic evidence was standard, I had also requested detailed investigative reports, meticulously documenting every step. In fact, I had already amassed enough evidence to confront Ryan and secure alimony when the day the chaos with the divorce petition erupted. I had unraveled the mystery behind Ryan's routine outings on Tuesdays and the second Sunday of each month. They coincided with Agnes's days off from work. Ryan unknowingly dug his own grave when he hastily drafted the divorce papers, handing me an unexpected advantage. While I had enough evidence to confront Ryan, I felt it was premature. My detective had hinted at a shadowy figure hovering around Agnes, Ryan's mistress, prompting me to request a deeper investigation into her background. It confirmed what I suspected. Agnes was indeed pregnant, and Ryan was aware of it. This revelation didn't surprise me. However, Agnes's insistence on visiting the doctor alone raised suspicions. She adamantly avoided Ryan's company, seemingly indifferent, but her intention was clear: to shield her other lover, a married man with children, from any suspicions. It was confirmed that the child she carried belonged to this married man, who, unable to openly be with Agnes due to his family commitments, agreed to cover all costs for her prenatal care and childbirth. Additionally, he promised a lump sum in child support once paternity was confirmed. He accompanied Agnes to every doctor's appointment, leaving no room for Ryan's involvement. Ryan, accustomed to my solo visits to fertility clinics, remained oblivious. Unbeknownst to him, I had gathered evidence of Agnes attending medical appointments with her other lover, including crucial audio recordings stored on my smartphone. I presented this damning evidence on the spot. Agnes's face drained of color, her hands trembling visibly. Ryan, consumed by anger, confronted her, shouting, "Have you been deceiving me?" His parents echoed his outrage. Feeling the situation was escalating unfairly against a pregnant woman, I intervened sharply. "Enough. You're all embarrassing yourselves." Ryan, the cheater, his enabling parents, and Agnes, planning to divorce Ryan and raise another man's child. All of you are behaving disgracefully. This is nothing but a sordid affair. My words silenced the room, each person unable to offer a rebuttal. There was no going back from this revelation. I had made up my mind. Knowing Agnes's shocking secret, it was clear these relationships were irreparably damaged. I couldn't forgive Ryan for his condescension during my struggles with infertility treatments and his subsequent pretense of kindness to mask his affair. I finalized my divorce from Ryan, resolved to ensure they all face consequences. "Agnes, you've chosen to raise 2 children alone. You brought this upon yourself. Now, you must face the consequences," I stated calmly. Agnes turned paler, visibly shocked by the weight of her choices. "You knew about my other child? How? Where did you?" Ryan and his parents frowned deeper, demanding answers. "Agnes is a single mother," I began, clarifying for them, "but her older child is being raised by her parents. They support her financially, but with another child on the way, she's been looking for a man to provide financial support, like an ATM for childcare expenses." I had evidence of her discussing this plan with her friends. Ryan looked visibly hurt, realizing the implied insult, yet he had no grounds to feel aggrieved. His parents were flustered, and his mother, her composure slipping, panicked. "So, this child isn't ours? Agnes, leave this house immediately." Agnes pleaded desperately, "No, it's Ryan's child. Please believe me." My sister-in-law, who had been silent until then, finally spoke up sharply. "Do you really expect us to believe that now, Agnes? Do you even understand the mess you've made of everyone's lives?" Agnes fell silent under the weight of her accusations. Then my sister-in-law dropped another bombshell. "Aren't you the mother of the boy who attends our daycare? The one always dropped off by his elderly grandparents. His name wouldn't happen to be Jason, would it?" Agnes's eyes widened in shock, her mouth opening but no words emerging. Her silence confirmed my sister-in-law's suspicions. Overwhelmed, my mother-in-law collapsed into a chair while my father-in-law looked on, bewildered and distressed. It was time to bring this painful confrontation to an end. I held up an ultrasound photo for Ryan to see. "Despite everything, thanks to fertility treatments, I'm pregnant with your child," I stated firmly. "I was going to tell you soon, but then the morning sickness worsened and your affair became undeniable. This child is yours, and I expect full child support." Ryan looked crestfallen, but his mother interjected boldly, "If you're carrying his child, you should still be his wife." We were misled by this woman. "Margaret, please stay and apologize." Ignoring her plea, I turned to leave. She called after me, but I paused only briefly. "What are you doing? You never accepted me from the beginning. When you found out Agnes was pregnant with Ryan's child, what did you do? Your audacity has no limits." My sharp retort stunned her into silence, a rare defiance from me that spoke volumes. My father-in-law, sensing their misjudgment, remained silent. I had no intention of seeking recognition as their daughter-in-law, especially after their betrayal. Outside, our sister-in-law apologized profusely, offering her support. "Just make sure they don't disappear," I replied calmly. "I'll handle Ryan through my lawyer. Let's stay in touch as friends." She nodded understandingly. "We'll get through this together." Later, with the help of a lawyer, I navigated the division of property. They protested the financial demands, but my resolve was clear. "I'll pursue this through court without mercy," I asserted, forcing their reluctant compliance. Meanwhile, Agnes's affair with the married man unraveled in a heated confrontation, causing turmoil that spilled over to his family, ending in discord. Agnes, in desperation, turned to her parents for help, but they were furious with her. They brought her to us to apologize. With a child on the way, Agnes faced the harsh reality of needing to work tirelessly from dawn to dusk, under strict control of her parents who now managed her earnings. There was little room for her previous carefree lifestyle. Having lived selfishly, Agnes now had to focus on her children. Meanwhile, Ryan's life took a downward spiral. He ended up selling the family home to meet child support obligations. Now, he squeezed into a cramped, run-down apartment with his parents, barely making ends meet. Despite agreeing to pay child support in installments, he predictably fell behind. Thinking he could evade consequences, perhaps misled by online advice, he was mistaken. I had warned him of my resolve. I promptly initiated legal action, securing court enforcement for child support payments. His employer learned of the divorce and his financial obligations, exposing his previous deceit of leaving work early under the guise of supporting my fertility treatments, only to spend time with Agnes. This revelation earned him public scorn and further consequences. In the end, Ryan resigned from his job and managed to settle his entire child support debt with a loan, sinking himself into long-term financial hardship. His parents also faced repercussions, now forced to work again to make ends meet, unable to enjoy their retirement peacefully. Their frequent reckless arguments escalated to the point where neighbors called the police for disturbances. Now, they quietly struggle with debt management, bitter in their complaints. As for me, I returned to my parents' home, apologized, and decided to stay with them for a while. With their unwavering support, things gradually began looking up. After giving birth, I received a job offer from my former employer for a full-time position. My sister-in-law, who works at a daycare, kindly agreed to care for my daughter, providing me with peace of mind. Now, as a single mother living independently from my parents, I'm managing well. With the support and encouragement from those around me, I've resolved to cherish these invaluable relationships and raise my daughter to be a remarkable person.